Hey, y'all, and welcome back to Perspectives. My guest today is Mr. Jacob Reed Jennings. Jacob, I would love for you just to introduce yourself a minute. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do and why I was so anxious to have you here as a guest today.
Because I'm blackmailing you, honey, and it was the only way to make this put it to the internet. That's how it is.
And it's obvious that I know Jacob.
Hi, everyone, and all of Patrice's loyal fans. My name is Jacob Jennings, and I am a broker in the state of Florida, but that's not why I'm interesting. Patrice loves me because I am the founder of the Sherlock Holmes Foundation, a 501c3 dedicated to ending LGBTQ youth homelessness for kids who have aged out of the foster care system or were kicked out for coming out. And I've been able to take my model and white label it to where we can help any population that is deserving of support around the country. And we took our organization starting 6 weeks before the pandemic hit and somehow expanded into 4 states in the first 2 years. So it's been fun.
It's been a lot of work is what it has been. And so, you said at-risk youth and
Mm-hmm.
LGBTQ who have come out and been kicked out. Why is that such a big deal?
Oh my God, why isn't it? Honestly, now I can give you a whole lot of fancy, social work nonsense, but I think, frankly, it just annoys the hell out of me. I think when people start talking about this stuff, I just want to smack them. Frankly, personally, it comes down to a lack of compassion. And not everyone. The thing is, when most of us hear, "Oh, I can't believe a parent would do that to their kid," you know what? That's because you have had a different upbringing. But a lot of it's because of lack of compassion. If you come from an area or a family that has had trauma, like you and I have talked about how trauma is generational, right?
Mhm.
Like it carries down. It doesn't matter. We talk a lot about it in the Black Indigenous people of color cultures, but it can be any family has something that's trickled down. Values and lack of values come down from generations. And if you don't have compassion as one of your values, well, you're going to have a problem somewhere down the line in your family. Whether it's because your religion does not support your child or your loved one's lifestyle, or it is your community that does not understand and is not seeking to understand, whether it is lack of any community or lack of any religion or spirituality or social structure. It's just lack of compassion is what it comes down to. And honestly, there's a big misunderstanding that comprehension and compassion are the same thing. No, you do not need to comprehend something to be compassionate, right? Like, I don't have to understand you to believe that you deserve a safe place to sleep at night. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to know or understand your full life story to go, oh, well, it's not safe outside in this typhoon or this blizzard or this heat wave. I think that you deserve a safe place to sleep tonight. That's compassion. You see, there's a difference. And that's really what I think is at the root of so much of what we're doing in our movement is teaching people be compassionate. Know that there's a difference between compassion and comprehension.
And there's a real, I don't think people, because, what you have said is, you view things from the lens in which you are in, right? And so it's hard to look at somebody else's situation, especially someone who has a different lifestyle than you. And so there's a whole lot of fear that is thrown at differences. And in this instance, we're talking about the LGBTQ youth. And so I know, and if you want to share, you may. I know that it's really hard to come out from what and I'm heterosexual, I'm married, I've got kids, so that's not anything that I've experienced. But of course, I've had the discussions because I have a lot of friends who have gone through that experience. Do you mind sharing what your experience was and maybe how some of that is rooted into what your mission is now?
I will gladly share. I first want to point out how you asked it, which was so beautifully worded. So
Oh,
beautifully worded. You asked permission and you gave permission to deny. That's so personal and that is so respectful. So thank you. I was 4 years old when I knew I was gay. 4 years old. I used to be, my family was very religious, and we would have to say our bedtime prayers every night. And my brother and I shared a room. I remember this. I remember I had the blue reverse comforter and he had the red reverse comforter. And we were, Irish twins. So everything was like matchy, but slightly different. And my parents would watch us say our prayers from the bedroom door. And at the end of all of my prayers, we would start off, God bless mommy and daddy and grandma and grandpa and everything else that we had to go through after Now I Lay Me. And I remember thinking, God, when I wake up, please make me a girl. And I would pray that. And then one time my parents asked me, they couldn't hear me. They said, what are you praying? And I told them, well, when I wake up, I want God to make me a girl. And they're like, no, you can't pray that. No, Jacob, that's not how God works. Now, keep in mind, my 4-year-old head had been told God could do anything, right? Like there's nothing God can't achieve. So why can't he make me a girl when I wake up, right? Now, I want to be clear about this. This was 4 years old. This was like, I was young. This was very, very young. This was before puberty. It was nothing to do with sex or sexuality. It was actually nothing to do with gender either. It was just me wanting to understand why I didn't feel like a boy. I didn't enjoy playing with the trucks or running around outside and climbing trees. I didn't feel comfortable with those activities like my brother did. I felt like a bad brother, honestly. I really did feel like a bad brother because I couldn't play with him, or I didn't enjoy playing with him. But all my cousins, they had Barbies, or they would like to do makeup, or they would draw, or play with yarn and crafts. I loved that stuff. That was what I was drawn to. So I thought that's what it meant, right? Boys did this, girls did that. Now, it was very confusing to me because that was the very first time someone put a limitation on what God would be willing to do for me. And I was told that what I was feeling was wrong. Okay. Now, that was at 4, and it stuck with me my entire life. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that we don't recognize when we're dealing with children, when they're so formative. Yeah, they're such formative ages, that they do shape them into who they are as a person, right? Now, you can talk about gender identity and transitioning and stuff all you want. Frankly, that's not my wheelhouse. I am supportive of gender affirming parents, and I'm supportive of doctors that want to talk to families about this stuff and weigh out their options, but it's none of my business, right? It's none of my business. But I will say that my parents were nowhere near as open-minded as some of the parents there are today. I tried very hard to fit into the heterosexual cisgender norms. Being a white man in the church was a big deal. And even though my family was biracial, my mom married my stepdad in the 80s, and he's Native American. And in the South, it was white and everybody else. We were kicked out of churches. I remember that very clearly. But I was able to get a really interesting perspective on the dynamics between multiple cultural differences in a home and how to navigate them. And the one thing that both of my parents were able to lean on was religion. So that became the backbone of our entire family structure. Everything was about God. Everything was about church. If I wasn't at school, I was at church. Like it was one of those situations. And I was raised to be a pastor. Patrice, darling, some things did not go according to plan.
No,
they didn't. But I was president of my youth group, and my friends would come over and spend the night, and then we'll digress. I found out I was gay. Anyway, so I tried very hard, very, very hard to be straight. I went to conversion therapy, started off voluntarily, then it wasn't, to try to become straight. And for those of you who don't know what conversion therapy is, there are various forms of it. Some are as mild as just therapy, like talking to somebody who's trying to pray the gay away, all the way to things like electroshock and ice baths and sleep deprivation and waterboarding. It's torture to, in our situation, it was exorcism to get rid of the demons. And no matter what I did, I couldn't shake it. I couldn't, it's so a part of me. It's my essence. I couldn't shake it. I tried and I was just hating myself. So when I was 16 and the conversion therapy was not working, my parents moved me down to Southern Virginia to be deeper into the Bible Belt. And it took me away from all my friends, any teachers that I knew of in the DC area that were more liberal or gay or open-minded. They took all that away, and they thought that would help me. It did not. And even though I tried, at some point I just had to recognize, okay, I have to choose to love myself or I'm going to kill myself. That is one of the things that all the kids I serve, they come to that point too. We're generations apart from each other now, but that is a pillar that they all express. I went home one day at my senior year, I think, yeah, senior year of high school. And yeah, it was. And my mom confronted me about leaving the phone in my bedroom, which I was not allowed to use the phone. I wasn't allowed to have outside connections when I was home. And she found out that I had called a boy and I had left the phone under my pillow. She didn't use the phone the entire day. And she came home, hit redial, and said, if this is who you think you are dead to me. You're dead to God, and you're dead to my family. Get out of my house. She then proceeded to pack all my belongings and throw them into my Ford Escort GT, 1993 Ford Escort GT, which used to shake when I hit the brakes. Not a very good sign. And I went to the bank where my mom took all my money except for $5 out of my bank account and told me to figure it out. She would have taken the $5 had she not had to wait for the account to be closed. Mm-hmm. So I am sitting there watching my mom peel out of the parking lot of the bank, and it like the minivan's tires were smoking to get away from me. Mm-hmm. Very burned into my head. And I get into my car and I'm surrounded by everything that I now own in the world. Mm-hmm. I have no idea what I'm going to do. And I'm still in high school. I graduate in like 3 months. I don't know what I'm going to do. It was that moment in that parking lot that I recognized that this was going to be the worst day and the best day of my life. Because now I didn't have to be frightened of going home. And the thought of sleeping in my car was somehow more appealing to me than going home to a family that was so uncompassionate. Mm-hmm. And I went to school. It was actually the week before our opening night for our play, and I was the leading man. Bye bye birdie, woohoo. Anyway, I walked in. I was late, clearly, because I had just had a bit of activity going on right before then. Right. And my God, I saw my drama teacher. She saw me and walked up towards me, and I crumbled to the ground. And I just sobbed. This was back in 2000 and I guess it was 2001 or 2002 at this point. And I didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. Had I not had friends whose parents gave a damn, I don't think I would have graduated high school. But because I did have amazing friends with amazing parents, and I had already gotten a scholarship to college, I was able to go to college on my scholarship. And I was homeless going to college. This started a cycle at 16, a cycle of homelessness that I was not able to kick. I would get stable for a few years and then down again and stay like there was nothing. And I couldn't figure out why I could not get secure in my in housing. I'm smart. I work hard. I can make money. I was a professional dancer, so I wasn't making that much money, but I had what I needed. There should be no reason life should be this challenging, but it was. It really was. So it wasn't until I was in my 30s experiencing homelessness again, for that was the third or fourth time, that I went, oh my God, the reason this is happening is because homelessness is based on a relationship. It's my relationship with the concept of home that's not healthy.
Mhm.
And I don't want to go back to an unhealthy relationship. So therefore, homelessness is going to continue to be cyclical for me.
There was a comfort for you in homelessness.
Yes, I was safer. I felt safer not being at home,
Mhm.
right? And therefore the universe was taking me out of a home because it's what I was familiar with, and I wasn't happy with it, but I had to start addressing that concept and that relationship.
Mhm.
Um, and after I started doing that is when I started to see my life really change. So that was the principle in which I have built my foundation for Sherlock's Homes off of. I want the kids that come and that we serve to understand that it's okay to revisit and rebuild your relationship with the concept of home.
So what are some of the services? Because I can only imagine, this kid in high school, all of a sudden, your parents they disown you, put you out of the house. Um, and you really do at that point in time, you either um, lean on close friends and strangers who are compassionate to your situation, or you find yourself really fending for yourself on the streets. What kind of dangers as a young man, as a young gay man, out in the streets, what are some of the things you encountered? Because I know that these are some of the things that you have built your foundation around to help provide a place of home for people, for young men and women, boys and girls who find themselves in this situation.
That's a powerful question, actually. So I'm going to use statistics to answer it,
Yes.
to avoid triggering, because it is traumatizing, and it's not a bad thing what you asked it. You see, I tried very hard not to be a statistic when this all happened,
Mhm.
and by trying not to be a statistic, I actually became one. Um, Situations are their survival skills, survival sets, if you would, that those who are experiencing homelessness, they adapt, that they create.
Mhm.
Um, 70% of youth that age out of foster care find themselves having to sell their bodies, drugs, or already in prison within 72 hours of leaving their final placement.
Wow.
In my situation, it was the same for, um, I had, I was lucky that I did not in 72 hours find myself selling my body or selling drugs. I was not in that neighborhood.
Mhm.
Um, but I did have to do things to find a safe space to sleep at night sometimes
Mhm.
with people I would not have had to do it otherwise.
Okay.
Not something I'm proud of, but it is something I had to do. So I'm not ashamed of it either, I guess you'd say. But it is something that most people don't realize these survival skills are essential to homeless youth.
Survival skills. I think it's important, just to stop you a second, because as humans, uh, one of our strongest instincts is to survive, and it's to survive whatever the situation is. And so this is where I get to come in and say that until someone has walked in what those shoes are, there's no place for them to judge you. I've known you for the amount of time I've known you, and I've
That's it.
yeah, this is where you do what you have to do sometimes to survive. Um, and there is no shame in what that is. And had I realized that this particular question was somewhat of a trigger for you, I would have avoided asking it.
You're,
Yeah,
I'm glad you did. It's something that, and it's not a bad. It's actually a
but it was
beautiful question.
planned. Remember?
Not at all. No, no, no.
No, it really wasn't.
It, it wasn't planned, but it was. It's an important question because the thing is, what everyone tends to think about is when something deviates from their norm, or their experience, or their expectation of what if you would handle a situation one way, that's great in theory until you have to actually do it, right?
Right.
And then it's like, oh well, all these things I thought I could be able to do, I don't have the resources or the access to address this situation, or the maturity, or the life experience, or the hindsight. You're doing what you can at that moment to survive.
Right.
And we all have that in some way. One of my favorite examples, believe it or not, is in Breaking Bad. Have you ever seen Breaking Bad? Oh my God, girl, it is fantastic. But it's a great example of it's such a well-written movie, but of people doing what they have to do to survive, and they get more into more desperate situations, and they have to take more desperate measures
Mhm.
in order to make things work, and it becomes a very tangled web rather. So when you are I've learned to be more compassionate with my kids when they come to me and they tell me, that they had to go make rent for that month, and they had to go online and sell their bodies to do it. It broke my heart to hear them say those things. So, but I also expect that, and I don't judge it either. You see, people will go and they'll say something is uh, not dysfunctional, but something's broken, something's off. These kids are clearly problems. They're the problem,
Right.
and it's like, no, 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 no. Someone's identity is not their situation. Your identity is not your situation, and if you can improve someone's situation, you'll see what their true identity is.
Mhm.
You'll see that they might have been put in a tough situation because they had parents who were abusive, or they had a guardian that was neglectful, or they were in a bad neighborhood, or maybe they were kidnapped by their uncle. This is all stuff that's happened, by the way. It's been crazy. One of my kids, this one, Jorge, he's one of my, God bless him. He was on the autistic spectrum. And when he came to my house, he was the third kid I brought in. He
Mhm.
had been sleeping behind a dumpster in Fort Lauderdale for about 7 months, and he smelled like it. He had been homeless for 7 years, and the poor kid was only 23.
Wow.
Kid, for me, they're kids, and he had the mental capacity of about a 14-year-old. Um, but he was just the sweetest thing when he was given direction. When he wasn't, he was a terror. But his mother was a prostitute, abandoned him in Puerto Rico, and he grew up with his 80, 90-year-old grandparents. Uh, and they did what they could, but something happened, and he went into foster care. I was never quite clear on that because he and his siblings got separated.
Mhm.
Now, something a lot of people don't realize is that 80% of kids in orphanages, by the way, actually have family that could take care of them, but they don't have the means, the resources to do it outside of the institution. So he still had his grandparents around, but he couldn't live with him. They couldn't support him, right?
Mhm.
Heartbreaking. 80%. 80%.
The big number.
So, anyway, Jorge finds his way to America without speaking any English and tries to find his mom. Finds her, and she is dating a drug dealer who is the only man Jorge ever knew that gave him any sort of love.
Mhm.
And what does that guy do? He does what he thinks is best and shows the kids the rope. This is how you survive. This is how you sell drugs, because he had no other role model. He had no other example. And to be honest, that man had no other skill set to teach him.
Mhm.
God knows how long that had gone on for in his family, right? So I understand a lot of this. Well, the boyfriend ended up going to jail, and the mom looked at Jorge and said, "I'm leaving, and you're not coming with me," and left him again. And I think he was all of 19 at this time.
Mhm.
Jorge then spent the next several years trying to get his act together, and he couldn't. So when he came to my house wearing nothing but ratty clothes didn't even have a toothbrush. I took him in, we gave him clothes, we took him for a haircut, and he stayed with me through the pandemic.
Mhm.
I was able to find his sister, whom I did not know he had for months. We were able to locate his sister, and when she got him on the phone, she cried and screamed. She's Latina. She clearly had a lot of emotions, but screaming at him, "How dare you wait so long to call me? Where are you at? I don't know." Sobbing, tears. She came down a few days later and picked him up, and he moved in with her up in Georgia.
Mhm.
And when he left, like it was a full on like sob story. Like the
Yep.
neighbors came out, they all came to hug him and wish him well. And um, he was able to go and be an uncle. And now he's still up there with them. They moved to Pennsylvania recently, but uh, having him reconnect with his family has helped him create his identity.
Mhm.
And that's he still sends me messages on Facebook. He's such a dork. I love this kid. I still check on him. I just there's something it's always the little things that we can do to make a big difference in people's lives.
Mhm. So tell me, you said that there are 5 locations. Um, 5 locations of what?
So we have our program. My goal is to be in all 50 states by 2025. Sounds ambitious, but we've created that framework by creating various ways of expanding into markets, right? So we had our first home in Boca Raton, Florida.
Mhm.
And then 6 months later, this was during the pandemic. 6 months later, we expanded into Colorado Springs, Colorado. 2 months later, we got a transgender 10-acre hobby farm in Peyton, Colorado,
Mhm.
which is just outside of Colorado Springs. Then we did a bunch of other things. We got some investment properties. Now we're also in Richmond, Virginia, and Raleigh, North Carolina. All of these homes have their own specific mission. They all feed into Sherlock's homes in specific ways. And we're trying to create it as an ecosystem so that as a socially responsible housing model that both for-profit and nonprofit business owners can actually um, adapt into their own models and do something to improve their communities.
I love this. I love it, and I'm just thrilled that you decided to come and spend some time with me today. We don't get to talk as much as we used to. And I think that the work that you and the Sherlock's Homes Foundation and Homes for Heart um, does work that is so necessary and so needed. You know, I truly believe that we are kind of in a society where everyone, you know, is trying to tear apart so many different aspects and elements of who we are as people, as individuals. And there's just a lot of difficulty in respecting you know, what our differences are, but recognizing so much of what we are as humans that we have in common. And, you know, there is so much uh, discord and vitriol that I see and hear daily for young LGBTQ youth and homelessness and the mental health aspect. And I truly, truly respect, you know, the work that you do with your team and what you provide, not just for the people in your community, but the goal to be able to provide it on a national level. So, you know, I can say all that and then say that you really are the biggest dork. And I love you dearly.
I'm so grateful you recognize that. I
I
don't.
do. I do, honey. I do recognize it. And as you guys, and it, you know, interestingly enough, I've done, I think maybe 10 or 11 casts and podcasts. And everyone that I've had on, I have either met through Clubhouse or know personally, people I've known, you know, pretty much for a lifetime. And, you know, I've watched a whole lot of people do a whole lot of different podcasts. And, you know, what I have found is that the people that I know, the people who have helped me shape opinions and views are people that I've kind of always had in my circle. And so having an opportunity to share all of those different perspectives with the people who tune into my podcast is a huge, huge compliment. And I'm just thrilled that you took some time out. I know, I've said this before. My podcasts are very raw. I don't edit. I also don't necessarily come in with a set of questions, and the conversation just kind of goes where it goes. So, Jacob, I appreciate you letting me take the conversation where it went today when those were the questions that kind of hit my heart to share. I know it's not always easy for you to go back to that period of time and share what it is that you walk through to get to where you are today. So, again, I love you dearly, and I certainly appreciate you taking the time to be with me today. So if somebody wants to contact you, how do they do that?
Well, well done. The good segue. So yeah, it's like you channel a room. You know how to run this stuff, huh? If you would like to get in touch with me, please feel free to reach out to me at my email is jjennings, that is JJENNINGS at sherlockshomes.org. That is SHERLOCKSHOMES.org. You could also go to our website. I'd love to have you guys there. You go to sherlockshomes.org or sherlock10k.com. That has all of our information there as well. Feel free, guys, if you are listening to this, come check us out. Make a donation, get involved, send us an email, share our story on social media. What, honey?
Make a donation.
Make a donation. Yes, they really do save lives. I mean, it's funny because people don't understand the value of $5 can help us go buy a package of toothbrushes and toothpaste, right? And it's the little things like that. But we need, in order to keep our mission going, we do need donations, we do need funding, but we need support from the community, of any community, of all. It's going to take us as a society to stop waiting for someone else to make a difference and realize, oh, I can make a difference today. And that difference could be simply just going to our website, liking us on social media, telling someone about us who might tell someone else who'll need a home to stay in tonight. So it's something that we can do together if we recognize that, hey, we're better at this as a team than we are as a solo act.
You were telling me something about a fundraiser before we came on camera. So what was that?
Oh my God. So I'm doing this fundraiser on November 20th. I'm super excited about it. We're calling it a Jolliday party.
Oh,
I know, right? So funny. So a Jolliday is because it's right before Thanksgiving, right? So it's not quite holiday, but it's almost holiday because we're all prepping for it. So we're gonna have like raffles where you can get like a Jolliday tree, which would be like decorated in various forms, like tabletop trees, right? We'll have what else do we have? We'll have like a pie raffle so people can take stuff home for their Thanksgiving, which is a few days later. We're gonna have different. We're gonna have a comedian, musicians, dancers. I'm gonna dance. It's gonna be hosted by Mother Anita Moorhead. She's a drag queen, to be very clear. That was obvious by the name.
It was very obvious by the name.
But it's going to be fun. I'm actually really excited about it. I haven't planned a live event since COVID, right? So I'm throwing this together, and it's going to be a really good time. And I'm so excited for our team. So if you guys would like to learn more about the Jolliday Party and how you can get involved, you can go to our website. We're going to have information on our website, as well as a landing page, and you can make a donation online. You can attend in person. I would love to have you guys, and thank you for everything, y'all. Everything.
Well, guys, that is this little podcast of perspectives today. So thank you again, Jacob, for being here. And please, I encourage you to come back for more perspectives. Bye.
Mwah.